So the Georgians exhibition at the Fashion Museum will include 42 items of Georgian dress. Now, there's a little caveat in that, because we will also include 6 very contemporary pieces by contemporary designers, including Sarah Burton for Alexander McQueen, Vivienne Westwood, and a couple of other contemporary designers who have produced pieces which are Georgian inspired. But the main thrust of the show is that we will showcase, we will present to our visitors examples of dress that real Georgians would have worn from 1714 right the way through to 1830. Now, one of the things that is really special about the Fashion Museum collection is that we have not 1, not 2, not 3, but actually 4 court dresses. So these are the very, very large dresses. I'm going to stick my hands out, with huge panniers either side, that everybody always said, well, how on earth did they ever walk through the doors? So these are rare. These are rare survivals nowadays, and here at the Fashion Museum collection in Bath we have 4. And what I'm going to show you, Richard, just now is just one of these examples, because one of these is a mini mantua. So it's a small scale version of a court dress, and I'm going to unveil it now. It's we keep everything in sort of carefully controlled conditions here at the Fashion Museum, and this piece is shrouded a bit like a budgerigar, actually, in a cage with a special tyvek, which is in a sort of, it's half a paper, half a fabric. And here is our mini court dress. So I'm just going to take its cover off, and you can see here that it's a thing really of rarity and of beauty, really. It has this very, very wide skirt here. It's almost rectangular. It's like a sort of cross between an oblong and a rectangle. In the 18th century, in Georgian times, this would have been known as a petticoat, which is sometimes quite difficult for us to get our heads around, because a petticoat to us is an undergarment, but a petticoat in the 18th century was very definitely a garment that was designed to be seen. And there are 3 parts to this particular type of court dress, which was known as a grande habit. So there's the petticoat, and then there's this very boned bodice here, which you can see here. It's tremendously stiff, almost like a funnel shape, and then these little boned tabs opening out at the bottom. And then behind, the 3rd part of this dress, was this very splendid court train, which would have trailed out behind the wearer. Here you can just see that it is also, I'm going to put my specs on for this, but it's just caught up here by these little tiny buttons and loops here. So that could be undone, and it could come round over the sides of the petticoat. But you can only really imagine the splendour that a full-scale dress like this would have, the effect really that it would have had. I think as well, if you look at the silk, which is it's these beautiful gold colours and pinks and greens, that's not far off what the original colour of the silk would have been 250 years ago.
Who would have worn this?
This particular style of court dress, the grande habit, was only worn in this country by the Queen and by members of the royal family. So it is a very, very specialised form of dress. But this style, we know as well, was the style that was worn across the European courts. So the French royal court. We also know that there was a very important dynastic marriage in the Swedish royal family around about this date, the 1760s, and the bride wore a grande habit du cour, a style of dress like this. So very, very specialised.
Rosemary, who would have used this model, and for what reason?
Yeah, this is really fascinating, Richard, because this is sort of early salesmanship, because this mini mantua would have been worn by a mini fashion doll. that belonged to a mantua maker, and that was the name of the people who made dresses in the 18th century. And the mantua maker would have taken round the fashion doll and the fashion doll's dress to his aristocratic clients to show them the kind of styles, the kind of variations in style, the variations in trimming as well that they could order for their own mantua maker. So it's a sample. It's a mantua maker sample.
Any idea how much a dress like this would have cost?
I don't know, but if you look at the various elements that are involved here, you look at the silk, and the silk has got lots of different weaving techniques. So these stripes, the metal thread, the silk fabrics, there's a lot of techniques going on first of all in the weaving. Then you have a look at this this lace. This is metal thread lace. You can just see its sort of metal strip there as well. Again, handmade, incredibly costly. And you can just see down here as well, there are these little rosette ribbons here which have just been shaped into little tiny rosebuds. There are these pieces of fly braid. Now, all of these textile techniques, and we're just talking about the fabrics here, would have a cost on them, and a very high cost. And then you think about the skills that would have been needed to create this boned bodice, and the intricacy of that, and all of these little bones here would have been stitched in by hand. So again, the unit cost is going up and up and up and up. So we're looking really at a very costly dress. And one of my jobs between now and January 25th, when the exhibition opens, is to see if I can find out exactly how much something like this would have cost.